I now call this workshop of the Bryan Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this workshop has been duly called, and that notice of this workshop has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We want to welcome everyone who's present today. Citizens may make comments about topics relevant to district business. Topics should be limited to 3 minutes, and comments concerning specific students or personnel will be heard in closed session. Do we have any citizens' comments? Okay, there being none, I ask that you turn off your electronic devices. And first on the agenda today is our spotlight. So we're doing something a little new. At each meeting, we'll do campus brag. So we'll be rotating through all of our campuses because we want to hear about all the wonderful things happening with our campuses. And today is Jane Long Intermediate. They're going to focus on the health and wellness fair and the impact of foundations training. And joining us today is our principal, Dr. Desiree Caperton. Welcome. Okay, does it work? It's not working. Try again. No?
Oh, here it is. I got it. Okay. So I'm Desiree Caperton, so thank you for having us. Go Lobos! I had also invited our PTO president, Shanette Bates, and she is not here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Health and Wellness Fair. And Ms. Benford, if I need some help, I hope you'll help me out since you were there. But we had a few weeks ago this wonderful Health and Wellness Fair set up with about 12 organizations. We had a chiropractor there. We had BB Casa there. We had, I already forgot. Do you remember some other ones? I know.
Frost Bank, 2 insurance companies, Brazos Valley Blessings.
Oh, yeah. We had some A&M students there who are willing to come onto our campus and help do some stuff.
BB Casa, Health District. There were more than
The
12.
food bank. Yeah, there was a lot that came. And what was really great, unfortunately, we didn't have the biggest turnout of community to come out, but with all of these people, we decided to still gather in the cafeteria and kind of network and get ready to plan another one. We kind of hashed out why maybe it wasn't as successful. We did it on a Friday night. And so, in the future, maybe doing it on a Tuesday or a Thursday. But everyone was wonderful and happy. Yay! The queen is here. Miss Bates, come on. No worries. Okay. The expert's here. Have a seat. There you go. This is Shanette Bates, our PTO president.
Just the program. Okay, so we wanted to put the program together just to kind of give resources to the parents and also kind of have some people come out and speak to the kids. That way we can kind of encourage them to be their best and act their best at school, and also kind of help with their home environment and the stability in their home. So we put the program together just to kind of meet in the same place, have the resources there as well as having the speakers there for the kids. Like she said, we didn't have the best turnout. We had amazing turnout with the resources. Everyone was there and they showed up and they were ready to go. We didn't have as much of we didn't have as many of the students or parents being there, but it was kind of short notice. We put it together pretty fast. So we're thinking if we put it together again and it's more of a notice for the parents, and maybe we can have incentives maybe for them to come, maybe it'll be a little better next time.
And I was just going to say what was awesome is that there is a lot of help in our community, a lot, and they want to be in the schools helping us. So it was exciting. So I think our next one will be really great. So I'm super excited, and Shanette did a great job. So thank you for all your work. And I'm glad you guys are recognizing her. So thank you. Okay, next up is Mackenzie Gomez. She's going to talk to you about news crews and her being a leader at our campus.
Howdy, my name is Mackenzie Gomez. I am in the 5th grade dual language inquiry program at Jane Long Intermediate School. On February 17, we will be attending NASA. I'm so excited. My favorite part is being in the news crew. I have to complete a job application. I get to make new friends. I believe this has helped me become a stronger leader representing my school. Something I feel proud of is that I implemented a new job of greeting students and teachers around the school. This makes teachers and students happy. I love Jane Long because we have the best teachers and principals. Go Lobos!
Okay, and next we have Mr. James Irick. He teaches math, and he's part of our foundations team, the PAC.
That's totally not fair having to go in after Mackenzie, so I'll keep it very short. It's been my pleasure to serve Jane Long on our foundations team, working through the modules and kind of getting set up with how the whole process works to implement some positive changes on our campus. And we have seen some of those changes already come through, even though we're still in the middle of the process. All the feedback that we're getting has been pretty positive, and if it's not positive, it's at least constructive. So we're really making some positive changes. We're seeing our transitions go smoother. We're working on really focusing on how to collect the best data that we can to really measure our successes. So right now, all that we're really able to see is just kind of what we feel is happening in the building. And right now, it feels a lot better in the school. So we're really working to that end right now. But it's been an exciting process, and I'm really glad that I got to be a part of it and really get to grow our campus culture and watch it change in a positive way and really see what's coming in the future. And then this young man next to me is Zen, and he's going to talk to you about something else.
Hello, my name is Zen Haji, and I'm in 5th grade. This year I won the school spelling bee at Jane Long, and I am in art club. I would like to talk to you about art club today. All the murals on the walls in Jane Long have been done by art club students. Art club has made me become a better leader because I've been able to direct how to paint. I was nervous that I would mess up the murals when I joined art club, but art club has made me more confident in my drawings and paintings. I like that we have time to paint after school for art club, and we don't have to worry about missing our schoolwork. The murals on the walls make our school more bright and lightens up the atmosphere. I love Jane Long because there are amazing people, teachers, and artwork.
That's pretty.
I would like to elaborate. When they mentioned the Foundations program at their school, this is part of the Safe and Civil Schools initiative that the board approved last year. So thank you for your implementation of that. Sounds like things are going great. So proud of you.
Yay. And thank Ms. Skinner Caperton. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm. And, you know, I can imagine on Spirit Days what you look like and how you're acting.
We're having a Spirit Week come up for Black History Month, so come on out. I'll be dressed up.
So your enthusiasm is contagious, and y'all have some of the best teachers and principal. I bet it's kind of fun and exciting to see how she looks and how she acts every day.
And they didn't really give themselves credit for that wellness event. A lot of the reason why the vendors thought people didn't come, it was cold and raining that night, and so that's probably why a lot of the parents stayed away. But they had good food. They gave away awesome door prizes, crock pots, gift cards, gift baskets. They gave away a lot of good door prizes, and it was a benefit to the resources that were there because there was people there from Houston and Austin that came down for the event, and they got the opportunity to network with other organizations that are here local. So it was a win-win. So everybody is excited about the next one, helping promote it. But it was a lot of good information there for the community. High energy from the time you came in till you left. Good food. It was a good night. It was a very good night.
Must have been good food. She mentioned it twice.
Yeah, it was.
What exactly was disseminated? I know it says wellness fair, but what was
for the wellness fair, we had resources like we had BV Casa, we had Blue Cross Blue Shield, Low Cross Insurance, the health department. Okay. We had chiropractic service. We had literacy program, SARC, Frost Bank. yeah, Medicare and Medicaid. So we had a lot of good resources just telling about the programs in the community. We also got to, as she said, we networked a lot. So actually, instead of it just being a program, we decided that it would be almost like a series that we're going to have. We're going to try to have the program at the beginning of the school year and then have classes monthly that will just involve all the resources that we have there. We'll bring SARC back in and have a few classes. We'll bring BB CASA back in and have a few classes. So we'll just try to make it a thing with incentives for the parents. That way, maybe throughout the year, we'll kind of alleviate some of their stress when dealing with kids at that age, because they're all at an age to where they're trying to figure themselves out. They don't have as many people on their back telling them what to do. Now it's kind of their job to figure it out and do good and do well on their own. So what we want to do is kind of get the parents in there to learn how they can help them out and accommodate them at that time, as well as kind of get the kids into different programs. We were wanting to work on getting a few kids signed up for Big Brother, Big Sister for mentorship. And I was going to be working with the behavioral specialist teacher and figure out which kids we would want to send that out to and get those kids set up with mentors. That way they can have someone advocating and coming into the school for them. And we also will be trying to work on getting surrogate parents for the kids that are in need of that at the school. That way we can have people that are constantly coming in and worrying about their well-being and allowing them to be their best at school with the help that we have in the community. I mean, it's a lot of help in the community, and we want to actually show them that it's there, give it to them, and try to push them forward in school. That way they can be the best throughout their whole school career, not just at Jane Long.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always great to hear about the wonderful things happening across our campuses, so we look forward to updates at all of our future board meetings from different campuses. So I know Ms. Carabine has them on a schedule, and so we look forward to hearing from more schools. Yes. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
And great job, students. Next is a school boundaries update. Dr. Ibarra?
I feel the struggle of Mr. Irick having to follow Mackenzie when I need to follow all of them. Was a wonderful presentation. And it's actually very timely with what we're going to be talking about today. So this is another update on school boundaries. We're going to continue to bring you information on where we are in the stages in the process. This week, we're ready to send letters out. And so let's just remind everybody kind of the journey we've been on. And then we'll talk about all of the next steps that are currently in motion as we move forward. So very briefly, the goal, as we all know, was to create an attendance boundary for Sadbury Intermediate, knowing that when the bond passed in 2020, we wanted to reduce the enrollment at our two intermediate schools and open a third intermediate school, hopefully making those enrollments between 600 and 800 students, and preparing for that. And in doing so, we also knew that we had some adjustments to make at the elementary level to deal with some of the identified needs, where the School Boundary Oversight Committee identified, as you can see, 6 things on the screen there that needed to be addressed through the boundarying process. Some campuses were overutilized, some were underutilized, and just making sure we had enough students of any particular setting on a campus where there was another teacher to partner with, and so the students weren't so isolated. Those boundary adjustments were approved by the Board of Trustees on the 17th of January, and they are reflected on the screen there and then, of course, on the maps. But those are the small adjustments that were made. In total, we were talking about maybe 300 to 400 students that were impacted at the elementary level. Of course, all of the kiddos going into 5th grade haven't been at an intermediate school yet, and so it'll be new to them. But that is where we're seeing the largest number of shifting of students in terms of what intermediate they go to. Before we started this journey, though, the board took action on how we would implement the new boundaries. And that's an important part of the process so that there's clarity from the beginning before we move into the boundary adjustments. And so that was taking place in September when we looked at FC Local and we updated the language in FC Local to put in writing what had been done in practice. And under Board Policy FC Local, when we look at it, the students who are at a capstone year at a particular grade level, like 4th grade or 6th grade, if their boundary changed, they can remain at the campus where they've been at school for however many years. However, transportation is not provided because the routes aren't designed for those areas any longer. So those students can remain. However, their younger siblings do need to go to the new school. And we talked about in September that the grandfathering of prior students, I had a kindergarten sister, a 2nd grade brother, that would take 5-10 years to implement the new boundaries if that were not the case. And again, the purpose in doing so was to reduce the intermediates to 600 to 800 and to balance the elementaries where the core infrastructure of some of those buildings couldn't handle the number of students were there. While they had classrooms and portable buildings, we needed to balance the size of the cafeteria and all of those things. And so because of that, that's the implementation. Student transfers are open. And so I know several of you have asked me that question, when will they be formally notified? We know the maps are out there, but we need to do a direct communication. So those communications are actually going to go out this week. And each parent in pre-K through 6th grade will receive a direct communication specific to each child they have enrolled that says your student currently attends this campus and this grade level, and in the new zones would attend this campus next year, pending the successful completion of this school year. So all of that will be given directly to them, along with a link. Our transportation team has been phenomenal. It'll also include the zones for next year and let them know if they do or do not qualify for transportation based on that zoning. For most people, there's not going to be any change in terms of where their school location is for next year, but there will be some changes for some people. We're also going to go ahead and advertise the intermediate night. You can see the flyer there that Communications helped us produce, and Jane Long did a great job leading into this. But intermediate night is coming up on February 16th, and all 3 intermediate schools will host an informational evening welcoming their parents, their new parents, into their buildings for the coming school year. So all current 4th graders, about to be 5th graders, will get the opportunity to visit with the principal and to learn about all the different clubs, organizations, and activities they can sign up for at their intermediate school. And a special little shout out here, you'll notice there's a little section there on the right. Texas A&M University will be joining Jane Long Intermediate. Jane Long is the home of the dual language program. So all the students from Johnson and Crockett and Henderson who rise and matriculate through the dual language program end up at Jane Long, where we have all the students together, and Texas A&M will be partnering with us to help the parents talk more about biliteracy and all the opportunities available to their children by continuing in the dual language program at intermediate. And again, that'll be exclusively at Jane Long because that is where that program is housed. We'll also start to see in the next couple of weeks principals reaching out to their new students as well as their students who might be going somewhere else. So all of the principals this week will be getting a spreadsheet that says, here are my current students, and these kids will also be my current students next year. Here are my current students who are going somewhere next year, and here's where they're going. And here are the students I've not met yet that are coming to me, so that we can have different conversations and reach out and support those students, whether they're going to another campus or they're coming to us from another campus. We need to support both directions. And so those principals are going to be reaching out to those families in the next couple of weeks with activities and events where they can come to the school and experience at the elementary level all the wonderful things. You'll also see the intermediates doing something similar with the rising 5th graders as they start to acclimate and adjust to their new role as 5th graders. Coinciding with the school boundaries and not unrelated is the launch of the Aspire Academy. So Odyssey and Inquire students will just continue through the grades 6 through 8 as they matriculate for the remaining years, and they'll continue in their programs. But 5th graders get the opportunity for Aspire. So far, we've had over 350 applications from 5th graders, or 4th graders, soon to be 5th graders. And we're excited to see the interest in this pathway program. So at intermediate school, the students get to explore all 6 pathways both years. Mr. Irick, in fact, is one of the teachers that helped lead this design team and did a phenomenal job, as did Dr. Caperton. But the 6 pathways they get to explore, and as they matriculate up to middle school and high school, it corresponds to middle school and high school courses, so they can see various pathways. They're not locked into a pathway. They can actually explore multiple, and they can change their minds, which is what we would hope they would do. And they get the opportunity to explore and see what's the right fit for them, and what do they most want to investigate. So that will also be a part of the Intermediate Information Night. We've held multiple Aspire Information Nights, and in fact, the video of those nights is posted online, so if you didn't get to go, it is available to you, along with all of the information and the application, but it will be repeated, and we'll have a booth there for that at each of the intermediate nights to also let parents know about that opportunity. But really excited to see a larger than ever interest in the advanced academics programming for the current 4th graders rising to be 5th graders with the Aspire Academy. What questions can I answer for you? Any questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
All right, next, one of the new things we're going to start doing is having committee reports from the different committees, board committees, and other committees that board members serve on in our open meetings, just to make sure full transparency of what's happening, and to also help recognize the hard work that all of our board members are doing between our meetings, where you might see us here. So I have asked a couple of those committee members to give reports. So since our last meeting, the Technology Committee, the Teaching and Learning Committee, and the Finance Committee has met, and so we'll start with Technology Committee, and Mark McCall will give a brief update.
Thank you. And basically, Dr. Harlan, Mr. Gonzalez, and myself met, I guess, January 26th. We talked to opened the meeting talking about Digital Learning Day and digital citizenship in the classroom, and just an update from instructional technology. Talked about a new program for digital citizenship, Neptune Navigate, a company out of Tyler, Texas, providing the digital citizenship overview, media literacy, cyberbullying, privacy and cyber awareness, digital footprint, age appropriateness, digital world basics and review. So it's a very flexible program that covers a lot of different areas. One thing that we have heard about that we continue to talk about that kind of falls into the instructional materials as well as the technology allotment, and that is the biennium funding reduction. It was decreased, and it's in such a way that within that decrease, it's not corresponding with the adoption, so we're having to take multiple actions over multiple meetings to make sure that the resources are there and covered. So we've talked about that. We just went a little bit deeper. Cybersecurity training updates, which was good. We had our external cybersecurity consultant had delivered a report, and they'll actually be in district in May to review some of the district's safety measures, and just making sure, again, just I think from our end that everybody's being well trained and know what to look out for. And then finally, we talked a little bit about process we actually started a couple of years ago, but wanting to move forward. We've given Board Book Plus, Board Book Premier, which is the software that we use to manage the meetings. Not sure if it's really fitting the needs that we have overall, and some of that became evident last semester when just trying to piece together some of the different committee meetings and different information. So we've asked Ms. Johnson to start to pull together and some RFP, request for proposal type of information, and do a short list on alternatives to Board Book to bring back to the committee.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. McCall. And next, Teaching and Learning, Ruthie.
Mrs. Ybarra covered a lot of this, but that's okay, because the more we hear it, the more we'll understand it and remember it. We met on January 30th, and the members are Dr. Harlan, Felicia Benford, myself. The staff members there were Ginger Carabine, Dr. Ybarra, Crystal Goodman, Linda Montoya, Ms. Tiffany Lee. And the first major thing we talked about, the school boundaries and student transfers. The approved boundary adjustments were made at the January 17th board meeting. With the implementation of revised school boundaries, a student who is entering pre-K through grade 9 shall be reassigned to the new attendance boundary to attend the grade level he or she is entering, unless the student is attending the campus on an approved advanced academic program transfer. Parents must complete a student transfer during the transfer period. Students entering grades 4, 6, and 8 may remain at their current campus, but they will not be eligible for district transportation. Approximately, as we discussed this, and we found out and was reported to us by Ms. Ybarra, that approximately 100 families are affected. Parent information nights for Long, Rayburn, and Sadbury are scheduled for February the 16th. And what we're hoping is that these families will go to these nights, these information nights, and find out exactly what these schools have to offer that they may not know about, that their students are being transferred to. Like, for instance, once you met Miss Desiree Caperton, who wouldn't fall in love with Jane Long and all that Jane Long has going on and has to offer. So we sure want these informational nights. We really want good turnouts for those. Those are February 16th. The transfer window is scheduled to close on February 17th. One other thing that was discussed that was pretty major, the Explore cohort at intermediate. And from the recent school boundary adoption, the administration received feedback from parents regarding the cohort, or the group staying together, or the group that's together now at intermediate campuses. The cohort would be a 3-way split for Aspire, Inquire, and Odyssey, with a maximum of 22 students. Staffing, master schedule, and zone attendance will be considered for the cohort. And our next meeting is for teaching and learning is April 21st at 8:45.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. And just FYI, teaching and learning, I think used to meet once a 6 weeks period. That committee will be meeting about once a month now, as we get that back in rotation to meet more often than perhaps it was. And then next is our finance committee, Dr. Davis.
All right. So as we all know, financial stuff here is of extreme importance, and I'll highlight a couple of things that everyone, I'm sure, would love to hear. So we met this past Friday at the lovely time of 8 a.m. Myself, Mr. McCall, and Mr. Stasny. One of the things we talked about were the additional pay for the auxiliary staff that worked during the winter freeze of 2022. And several of the maintenance and custodial staff members gave up a lot of their time to come in on the 23rd and the 24th, and the administration believed that we want to find a way to, I guess, compensate them in a way. They were able to catch a lot of things during that time that really could have been catastrophic for the district during that time. So there were some discussions about additional pay to those staff members that worked during that time. We also discussed retention stipends, sign-on bonuses, and additional stipends for teacher longevity here in our district. Retention stipends and sign-on bonuses for 23 and 24 for the budget year, with hopes that these could be the same as the current year and funded with the remaining balance of our ESSER funds as well. We also, again, discussed the additional stipends for teacher longevity, starting at those at 5 years and then increasing every 5 years as well. That was also discussed. And our next meeting is on March 3rd at 8 a.m.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Dr. Harlan, I forgot to say this. I wrote a little note to myself. A minute ago when Dr. Ybarra spoke and made her presentation, and she asked if there were any questions, and none of us had real questions. Well, it's because of the work on these committees and how much we learn behind the scenes, so that when we are out here in these open meetings, it's not that we don't, it looks like, yeah, we don't have questions because we don't have questions, but it's because a lot of us, we've done our homework and found out a lot of the information, and the staff and departments have informed us, and we understand it. So this was a prime example of her giving us a lot of good information, but the reason we didn't have questions is because we have already studied it.
True. And I also think it demonstrates a lot of the work in our committees does overlap. So sometimes we'll hear things on teaching and learning that we might hear in technology, that we might hear in finance. So there's multiple ways that we're thinking about each of these topics. So I hope that we can just get in the habit of doing our committee reports and our open meetings just to allow full transparency of all the work that's happening behind the scenes. So thank you all for doing that. Next, we have a couple of information items. We're going to start with the 2022 to 2025 School Safety Standards Grant.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Harlan. This is another opportunity to come before the board and with safety and security being such a big item right now in our district, across the state, and across the nation. I want to just make sure that we bring forward an opportunity we have for a grant relating to that, and that we can use to meet the minimum standards, at least going forward for that. This grant would start February 17th of 2023 and run through April of 2025. And it's basically set out to meet the school safety standards that are being put out there. We, of course, will talk with our safety and security committee and our subcommittees as we go forward to look for the best uses of these. But basically, this is to meet the minimum standards that are set by the state for things like fencing, exterior doors that are secure, glass doors or ground level exterior windows that are not in a secured area, to use the intruder resistant or a shatter resistant film on those to make them more difficult to breach. The silent panic alarm technologies is another one that would be on this, and I think we brought a couple of meetings ago, we brought a grant forward that was specifically for that, and that would pay for the initial setup and probably the first year. This one could pay for an additional couple of years on that as well. So, and we're currently working with technology on those and what would integrate well with our system and make sure we have good options there. Other things it could be used for emergency radios and exterior door numbering, which I believe we already have. Some of these things we do have, so we could move on to other things. After you've met the minimum standards, it could go for security cameras and equipment, communication systems, trainings, and all kinds of prevention, identification, management of emergency and threats and things like that. So we will be working through that. And of course, you all know the legislature is in session, so there's probably more to come on this. This was a big item in our midwinter conference as well. So, but anyway, Bryan ISD's allocation on this grant is $736,662. And so we'll bring that forward to let you be aware of it. And as we go through here and meet with our safety and security committees and subcommittees, we'll bring that back to the board for purchases regarding this amount.
Any questions?
So Kevin, I know you said the money can be used for training. Would that also include not just the staff, but maybe some of the students training? And the only reason I ask that is because I know down in Uvalde, they're in San Antonio, different parts of San Antonio, they're training the students on what to do if different things happen. They, you know, what would you do if this happened or that happened? So they're training them at age appropriate. So elementary is getting one type where middle and high school are getting, you know, a different level. So would that be something that we could see how we could do that if it was feasible?
Yeah, I mean, yes, ma'am, we'll sure look at that. It doesn't specify in the initial information that we got, but, you know, we do our trainings and, you know, our lockdown drills and all those kind of things right now, which do, you know, pertain to the students, and, you know, everyone on a campus, for example, is involved in that. So, I believe it probably will be, just knowing, you know, how these things come out and are done, but because it is a campus or district-wide, you know, initiative, so it doesn't do any good to train, you know, the adults if you're not working with the students, and vice versa on those things. Everybody's got to work in unison to make sure that goes smoothly.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Besaw.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next information item is sustainable staffing for year-long residents. And so we're going to hear from Ms. Behrens and Ms. Kuhn on this one.
Hello, we've talked about residencies before, and part of the T-class grant that we have, which is a 3-year grant, we're in year 2 of the 3-year grant, so we have 1 more year of the grant. But part of the grant stipulates that we will find a way to sustainably fund residencies in the future. So when the grant is over, hopefully we can have residents still in our district. And so we've been working with Region 6 and the universities to come up with a plan for that, and so this is the plan we've come up with. So I'll start with the benefits to residency. So, you know, residency has so many benefits. To the resident, they get some really great, meaningful learning that's happening for a full year. They're seeing school from the very start of school till the very end of school. And that's a real gift for a student teacher to see all of that and to experience all of that from the eyes of a real teacher, so that when they are actually a teacher, that learning curve is much easier for them. They're getting an entire year of TRS service, and some of them, depending on when they start, are getting 2 years. If they're a spring and fall resident, they're actually getting 2 years of TRS. That doesn't mean a whole lot to them at 20, but it will mean so much to them when they are my age. They're getting a stipend so that they don't have to work a second job. So we want this to be their job. We want them to focus on their residency and learning how to be a teacher. And we'll give them a job after they graduate. And so basically, as a district, a benefit to us is this is a year-long interview. We're seeing them in our classes for an entire year. We're helping them to develop and do things the Bryan way so that when they are a teacher in our schools, it's a really good fit. We see that the teachers who are prepared in residencies tend to stay with the district. In our course of residencies, since we started residencies in, I believe it was 99, we've had 50 residents in our schools, 15 Aggie terms and 35 of the T-class residents. 31 of those are employed by the district. We have 15 still in the residency program. So let's see, 8 will graduate this May and 7 will graduate in December. So that's a really good record of keeping these residents employed by our district. And they're getting quality instruction for the students versus putting a sub in the classroom that may or may not know how to teach kiddos. These are qualified people coming in and teaching students. And then for the profession in general, you know, this really does reduce the learning curve. We see that 70% of our economically disadvantaged students are being taught by interns or probationary teachers. And so that's really, really young teachers in our schools teaching our most need-based students. And then we also see that our teachers who come in alternative certification programs leave at a 25% higher rate than teachers that are traditionally prepared. So this really keeps them in our schools for longer, and it makes it better for everyone. So what is our sustainable model? We worked again with Region 6 and Sam Houston on this model. I'm meeting with Texas A&M on Thursday to get them on board, but we don't see any problems with getting Texas A&M on board. This is actually a model that was rolled out by the TEA. We had several to choose from, and this is the model that we felt best met the needs of Bryan ISD. So in this model, we have a teaching team of classes. So we had 4 teachers in this teaching team, and we have collapsed one of those classes. We've divided those students among the other 3 classes in the team. Now, what you can see in this, this picture here is that we had 21 students, and when we collapsed it, it made 28 students. We know that our student-to-teacher ratios in the district are actually much lower than that, so we don't really anticipate 28 in a classroom, but that would be the very max we would do that. And then in those 3 remaining teaching teams, we would take the teacher from the team we collapsed, and that teacher is the master teacher over the entire team. There's a team of 2 other teachers, and they're just experienced certified teachers, and then the 2 residents. So it's a first-year resident who's there 3 days a week and a second-year resident 5 days a week. That second-year resident has actually completed enough days in student teaching through their first semester of residency that they can actually be certified at that point if they had graduated. So the only thing holding them back from their certification is their graduation date. And so even though, and that master teacher is supporting all 3 of them. So the master teacher is the teacher of record for that resident team, but they're supporting all of the teachers in that team. And so that helps us to make the student-to-teacher ratio lower, and actually lower than what we actually have in our classrooms now. So what will it look like in our district? We're going to pilot it next year, or we want to pilot it next year on one high-performing elementary campus, just on one grade level. And we're looking for a campus that has classrooms that are large enough to support this many students. And then we're looking at resident candidates. They will complete a university application. They'll be interviewed. We'll make sure that they intend to stay with the district and that they're a good fit, and they'll have passed their core certification exams so that when they do graduate, we don't have to worry about them being able to actually teach. They will be certified. And then our master teachers, our prospective master teachers will also complete an application process. They will be interviewed. They'll have principal recommendations, and we will look at their student achievement data to select our master teachers. And then sustainable funding, which is not in my papers here. Okay, so the way that we're going to sustainably fund this is that we would take the $50,000 that we would pay a first-year teacher, and we divide that in half. So each of these residents will get $25,000. So that's actually a really great amount. Right now we're paying $20,000 for our residents. So this would be $25,000 for our residents, which actually makes us really competitive because residencies are highly competitive now. The $10,000 that we would have allocated towards this teacher's benefits, residents don't get benefits. They will get, that will go to the master teacher as a stipend for the extra duties that they have to do. So it actually won't incur, the district won't incur any extra expenses for this. And then the residents will come from our 2 well-established partners, Sam Houston and Texas A&M. The partners will actually train the master teachers, so that'll take that off of our plate. And then we will have governance meetings to make sure that everything is going well and smoothly. So now, this is actually a video. We interviewed some of our, for a promo to help us to recruit teachers. We interviewed some of our residents, so this is that.
My name is Ellen Brochet, and I am a 7th grade math teacher at Dublin Middle School. I just always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. It was just never a question for me. A&M had a good program for that. The admin is great. The support that I have from the teachers and the admin are just like people from the district reaching out. It's great. I don't think it could have gotten any better.
I'm Hannah Dowling, and I'm currently at Johnson Elementary with Bryan's year-long residency program with Sam Houston State University. Yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I really encourage anybody who's wanting to teach to do the residency because you really do get that full year-long experience before you're in the classroom by yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? So that means we have 2 more left to do. What do we have left? It's been a really great program because I'm really getting to see the beginning all the way to the end of the school year, so I'm getting all the experiences, and it's nice to to have my mentor because I'm essentially doing my first year of teaching with a mentor in the classroom with me to ask questions and guide me and kind of help me with any, like I said, questions that I have.
My name is Daverick Bird. I am a year-long resident teacher from Sam Emo Cats, and I'm finishing my residency this May, and I'll graduate with a bachelor's in education. It's been great. You basically, one thing I always tell my friends that at the end of the day, they treat you like a teacher. You will forget quick that you're a student teacher. First, you get hired on as a 3-year teacher, basically, after your residency, after your degree is conferred. 1,000 sign-on bonus, 50K base, and then even as residents, we are paid, so we are hired. You will feel accepted. I have not been on a campus that gave me the cold shoulder. It is a family, and they truly cater to all demographics, so I do vote Bryan ISD because of that. I'm born and raised here, so of course I want to venture out, but they got me. Come on guys, it's lunchtime. Yeah. Talk to your mentor teachers, talk to your resources, use your resources, and you'll have a good time. You will. This is it. Teaching is great. It truly is.
And Ms. Bird, actually, the last one that you saw, she's actually being offered a contract at Rayburn when she graduates.
Yay.
So very exciting. So what questions do you have?
I have a quick question. So when the teacher of the classroom has to be out, do we still have to have a sub in there with our resident just for the sake of, okay?
Yes, we would still have a sub in there. And we would consider our residents to be teachers, even though they're not the teacher of record, they're teachers. They're our full employees, we support them.
And I understand why they can't get certified as a sub, because they're already on the payroll, so to speak. And so they can't, okay.
We would still support them with a sub, though.
So even one of those other two, so I know this room has the 2 residents in it, and these 2 rooms have a regular teacher. So if one of these regular teachers are out, we're still gonna hire a sub?
Yes, ma'am.
Why can't that master teacher or someone fill in
They
for
could.
one of those 2 teachers if they're out?
And they could, and that might be in a desperation situation, we would do that, but we would still want to get a sub in there if we possibly could. We want to give that master teacher the flexibility to support the residents and to support the others.
And I'm going to ask, I often ask questions that I should probably know the answer to, but just forgive me. But what are the universities providing exactly in this program?
They're training the students, and they are providing us basically the resident base.
Providing what now?
Just they're providing the students to us. They're not providing the money, they're providing the students to us and training them. They are training our master teachers and giving some support to our master teachers.
Okay, so there's not a financial contribution. Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
So right now, we're on a grant, and so we'll be in the grant for the 3rd year next year. So there's no cost for us to pilot this residency pilot program we have for next year.
But it's a forever deal we want to do, so we
Well-
want to write it into our budget? I mean, this is great. I would have loved it.
It really has no impact on our budget because what the model we presented is sustainable because we're cutting a teacher and then using 2 residents in that classroom and then having a mentor support.
So with no grant, we're still.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was the purpose, right? Like the grant said, you have to come up with a model for how to sustain it beyond, once the grant is over. And that's always been the challenge, right? Yes. So this is really innovative. I'm excited about it, but I had a couple questions. One is, in some of the resident programs, it is only a select group of students. So I've seen programs where it's those who have a certain GPA so what are the requirements for residents for this program?
So each university has its own requirements. One of them requires a GPA, and they both require core exams have to be passed and that kind of thing. We've actually lost some residents in their 2nd semester because they haven't met residency requirements of the university and not us. But everybody that meets those requirements is able to apply. And then we look at everyone that's applied and has listed Bryan as their first choice.
And then
we go from there.
Okay, and it sounds like from that model, it probably works well in an elementary, I'm thinking lower level setting, just because of those teams and the way they're configured. Do you see this? I know we have a high need for secondary teachers, so is there ways to tweak the model for secondary too?
We really need to, our plan is to look at it on the elementary level and then to expand to intermediate in year 2. We talked about secondary, and secondary has so many challenges. One of the problems, and one of the only way to do this model is you have to have a first semester and a second semester resident. And so to make sure that we have a pipeline of first and second semester residents is why we looked at elementary and intermediate, because EC6 is the easiest. When they get to the middle and high school level, their certifications are more specialized, and it's harder to make sure you have that pipeline, and that next semester I'm going to have an English teacher that can go with this English teacher.
Right.
And so it just makes it trickier. If we see that the universities are really giving us, a good pipeline of residents, we could absolutely look at that.
Well, but that's the challenge, right? Most universities are not preparing secondary students. They're almost, well, not all, but a lot. The majority now are probably alternatively certified.
That's absolutely the challenge. I will say that Sam Houston is going to a residency-only model for their student teaching. And so they are not going to have traditional student teaching. They're only doing paid and unpaid residency.
Even for secondary?
They haven't told me that it's not for secondary.
That's
so
interesting.
That's what I'm hearing.
I'll have to ask my colleagues there. what
Yes,
that means
so
for
I
them.
think that's exciting actually for the profession to see that. It's hard for students, but it's exciting for the profession to see that. So we might see a better pipeline when they move to this model totally.
Because my other question related to tuition, so I know students are probably maintain enrollment at those institutions, so I'm assuming they're probably part-time enrolled, not full-time students at their home institutions.
I don't
Yeah.
know the answer to their tuition and all of that. They are paying to do their residency because they're still students.
Sure.
Those first semester ones actually go to class 2 days a week. And so, and then the second semester residents, I don't believe they have class, but they do have requirements that they have to do for
Portfolios.
portfolios and
such. Awesome. Any other questions? Well, thank you for presenting such an innovative and sustainable model.
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing more. All right. Next, items for discussion and/or action on our regular agenda. First, from Teaching and Learning, we have discuss and consider approval of a purchase request over $50,000 for grades 3 through 5. I don't know if I'm going to say this right. Savas, Social Studies, from Dr. Ibarra.
Thank you, Dr. Harlan. And thank you, Mr. McCall, for the lead into our agenda topic this afternoon. As we talked about earlier, the instructional materials allotment and technology funding from the state of Texas in the last biennium was severely impacted. Prior to this biennium, the district would receive approximately $3 million or so in funds from the state to purchase instructional materials. Again, going back to the old days of we have this many students, they'd send us textbooks, now they send us a budget to pull from at the state level. That funding was reduced to approximately $1 million in the last biennium and did not nearly cover the expenses that we're seeing with instructional resources just for what we currently have. Compounding that problem was the pushing back of various adoptions. So adoptions are typically 8 years or so, much like this one right here. Social Studies was an 8-year adoption. It came before the Board of Trustees back in 2015. TEA has delayed the adoption of Social Studies, but has not funded the gap years between when it was due and when we're going to now have an adoption. And so that leaves it to the districts to fund the gap year purchases. When we fund them, we purchase an 8-year package. Well, now we need to purchase 2 more additional years to continue the adoption so that our teachers and our students have resources. And as we've seen previously, we did a board agenda item recently with HMH for English language arts at the elementary level. This is similar to that, only this one is social studies grades 3 through 5. You might be wondering, well, what about all the other grade levels for social studies? They don't always come over $50,000. So they are still having to be funded, and they are still coming out of the district's budget, but this one in particular was more expensive in the way the publisher has it packaged together. So what's before you this afternoon, and Dr. Harlan, I'm probably going to mess it up as well. I think it's Savas, Ms. Mouton? Okay, we're going to go with Savas. We can call it whatever we'd like today. But this resource was vetted back in 2015 as part of our instructional materials adoption process. That process includes making sure it is aligned to the state standards that are put forth by the State Board of Education. It also comes from a list of publishers that meet that standard from Texas Education Agency. And so all of the resources that meet that measure of being aligned to the standards, the TEKS, the TEKS, come before the TEA. They publish a list of districts, and then we start looking through them. We have a technology and instructional committee that the teachers are on, that various district staff are on, and they use rubrics to determine if the resource meets all the different measures that the teachers and the community want to see. Those are all rated, and then the top performers on those rubrics are brought in for a review of the actual materials. That's open to the public as well as parents, and then of course all teachers. This particular purchase, again, was back in 2015, and we are seeking approval and consideration for a 2-year extension to that contract, which totals $77,000. That will be paid in 2 equal installments, so $38,000 approximately per year for 2 years to help us mind the gap, so to speak, between when the next adoption will take place and the next biennium will be funded. This will come from a combination of title and possibly ESSER. It's possible that the instructional materials allotment will be funded this summer with a different amount, and if so, the subsequent year could be coming out of the IMA. But until we know more from our legislature this session, we won't know what that budget's going to look like. And so we're seeking your consideration for a continuation of a 2-year contract to maintain these materials in the classroom.
Have there, to your knowledge, been any significant changes to what this includes in terms of the information that is in this program?
No, sir.
Okay. I and I think some other people got some questions raised that some person was wondering if there were some issues and whether it had been properly vetted and all. And I think you've explained that it has been vetted not only by us but by TEA. Is that right?
And I did respond to that constituent, so.
And so, but I felt a need and obligation, I guess, to at least ask some questions whether there was, I mean, I realize controversy is in the eyes of the beholder. So you can find controversy in anything, but to your knowledge, there hasn't been anything, complaints?
Nothing specifically that's been brought to our attention, and should we have that, we'd of course take a look at it.
Okay.
We'd be glad to.
Thank you.
And
Absolutely.
the teachers have been happy with it. I know the other program we talked about, you said they were ecstatic
Yes.
about it. I mean, no complaints, nothing. And this is all digital, is that correct?
Yes, this is the digital resource, yes, sir.
So is there, and for my ignorance, and please excuse me, but is there a written, do they have a book and a digital component to most classes, or is everything going to digital?
It's a little bit of a blend. It's both. And so when we talk about, this is one piece, and I'm glad you actually asked this question. It's one piece of the instructional materials that are provided to teachers, and so they use some of the digital resources from here, but we also have curriculum and instruction documents that give them other resources beside this that they integrate together. What the teachers like about this one, and all the teachers did weigh in and ask to renew this particular resource, is that it integrates reading and writing into the social studies curriculum to support all of the other efforts at that grade level, which is particularly important this year as we know the state is adding in writing to all of the assessments. But to your point, sir, a great point, it is not the exclusive resource, it is one of many.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Did you have anything else?
No, I was going to say exactly what you just said. Thank you. Yeah, this, like all textbooks, they're just an instructional resource to supplement what we do from the standards-based curriculum that comes from the Texas Education Agency.
Okay, great, thank you.
I move approval of the agreement with Savas.
I like it.
For a 2-year cost proposal of 3 to 5 social studies digital resources in the amount of $77,481.78, paid in equal annual payments over 2 years.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Dr. Davis and seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, motion approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ibarra. And next, we will move to Human Resources, to Ms. Kuhn again. Discuss and consider authorizing the superintendent to negotiate and enter into a contract with ESS South Central LLC for the provision of substitute staffing services for the 2023-2024 school year.
Yes, thank you. So we bringing this to the board today to try to work on clarifying some things with this contract. And we've been working on this, and we began with just a little history with ESS in 2019-20 school year. From the financial standpoint, we started with that. Their original markup, and I believe they had, Ms. Kuhn, correct me if I'm wrong, they had one person dedicated to us at the beginning, and their markup on their fee, in other words, was 0.31 of the amount that they charged. And so, of course, it started out a little rocky. We got it starting to roll, got the people replaced. They actually added a person, I believe, at that point, and just in time for COVID. So COVID happened, so everything kind of changed on that. But when we renewed, I believe the first year, they changed.
Claire, are you able to get this up for them? I see everyone looking back at you. But
Yeah, it was, yeah. Okay. But so as we've gone through that, and we have a graph that they sent, or a chart that they sent us, but just in terms of the financial impact on the district, we asked them at one point when we were having the issues in that to reduce their fee, which they did. They came down from 0.31 to 0.29. And as we worked through that, we've gone this past year and we've asked them to reduce that again. And they've come back and said they really can't do that, and they sent us there we go. Okay, so if you all see that. So they sent us their breakdown of what their annual payroll is for those, their markup, and so their gross fees that they receive from the district. And then they go down through saying, what the payroll is to that. So the $2,492,000 is what the district actually pays them. And then their payroll, their unemployment, Social Security, insurance, and those kind of things, and they broke those down for us. The two people that they actually have committed to us full-time, and some of these other costs don't really apply to us, but so it comes down to their total expenses. What they're showing us is $2.4 million, and of course tax and all that. So they're saying their net income, their profit margin's really only about 2.5% on that. So what I did, I took this, and I'll let Carol and Angela go into some of the other benefits that they have, but I took it on the right side of that. I dropped in columns for our numbers as is. So we still take the 1.9 million in payroll, and then of course the federal unemployment tax, we have the same thing. Medicare is exactly the same. Then when we get to Social Security, we don't have that, but we have TRS, so we would have that for the subs. State unemployment, a lot of these other things still apply. We would have to pick back up the ASOP software. That's the program that they took over and actually facilitates the placing of the subs and that. The question one here would be really this is two people, the $140,000. We've since allocated other duties to other things, so we would have to add staff to try to add them back in or take that back over. But so if you come down to the bottom line there, we think probably $133,000 could be the district savings to us if we stayed at the same level. We have some questions if we could maintain that with the same price level that they have. And so on the far right column, I just raised the sub rate by 10%, which would take a $100 day sub to $110. I mean, it's not extravagant, but if we did that to try to fill all those positions, that would be about $78,000 more it would cost the district than it currently does to be with ESS. And I can entertain questions on that. And Ms. Kuhn has got, and Ms. Behrens have got additional information on the benefits and other dealings with ESS.
So the first slide talks about the benefits of us maintaining our partnership with ESS. And one of the big things is they offer insurance for our substitute teachers. Bryan ISD does not. And so that is a big benefit for some of our substitute teachers that we have. ESS has a call center, and they are able to call and secure subs into jobs in advance. So if we know that our football coaches are all going to be out on Friday, and they know that in August that they're going to be out in October on a Friday, they put it in, they secure the subs immediately. They are also able to motivate people to come to work. If we're running short on subs or people just not wanting to come in, it's cold, it's raining, whatever, they can call them and say, hey, I've got a Starbucks gift card, I'll send it to you, just come in. Bryan ISD can't offer gift cards as incentive, and so they have all kinds of drawings. They give away computers, iPads, whatever, as for people who work so many days. They put them into a drawing, the name's in a drawing, and then they give them prizes. We have those 2 ESS employees that are dedicated to securing and recruiting subs, and these 2 women in our office are just fantastic. They're the best, and unfortunately, if we were to break our partnership, we cannot hire them per our contract with ESS. And so we would lose them. We wouldn't be able to secure and keep them with us.
And we did try to get that taken out of the contract. Renewals, and they wouldn't
Nice
let
try.
us.
That was very
Dang,
good. We
Mon.
appreciate that.
We tried. And then our substitutes are paid weekly, which is another benefit for subs. And then the other thing is, if you can see the numbers, that we use ESS as a recruiting platform. When we have subs come into our building, they're on a job interview. And when they come in and they do fantastic work, then we have our principal saying, I want to hire this person. And so we only have to have them with ESS for 10 days, and then they're hireable over to our side. But you can see that in the 2020 school year, in the year 2020, not school year, from July or January 1 to December 31, we took 70 substitutes away from ESS. In 21, we took 80 substitutes away, and then 22, we hired 70 people away from the ESS program. And then,
and I don't know if anybody in industry that's got like a temp to perm is what they call it. And I did that many years before I came here, and that's I don't know if any of you are aware. That's a very expensive. What we're getting out of that is very valuable. Generally, when you do that, you can either work for a long period of time, several months, and work that fee down. But a lot of times, that's a percentage of whatever annual salary you're going to do. So, I mean, the benefit of that, in my mind, is really a great benefit for us there.
so some of the complications, if we break our partnership with ESS, is number one, we're still reeling from the great resignation of teachers leaving the profession, people not wanting to be teachers right now. Also, we're dealing with a different workforce of employees. Money doesn't mean the same thing for our kids coming out of college versus when we went through college. Everybody wanted to get a job and go to work and, start building a savings. That money doesn't seem to be as important, and so different workforce is out there. We would have to rebuild frontline. That's not that big of a problem, but we'd have to rehire all the substitutes. And so that could be a complication. We'd probably lose some people along the way. And then we would not be able to provide the insurance for our substitutes. So that's kind of the pros and cons as we see it for breaking our partnership or keeping our partnership with ESS. Our contract, we've had it vetted with our former in-house counselor before he left us. It's the same contract. They wouldn't change it to give us the flexibility to hire the 2 women, but it's still the same. So today we're asking for consideration and your approval to continue this partnership.
Carol, I can remember a term called fill rate. And
yes.
I don't want to put you on the spot because you didn't know I was going to ask this, but I know that that was one of the issues when we were trying to manage substitutes ourselves, is that we had that discrepancy between, we can't fill these sub positions, so we have uncovered classrooms and teachers it was stress on our teachers trying to manage that. So what I heard when we moved to this contract is that fill rate was less of an issue with ESS. So is that still the case?
ESS has managed to fill, and they track the teacher fill rate, is what we've asked them to track, because we feel like the teachers are the absolute most important thing. And tracking the teacher fill rate, they are consistently tracking in the mid-80s for teacher fill rates, which is a really good fill rate. I'm very concerned that if we were to take it over, it would be much harder for us to get a fill rate like that, simply because they have the resources. They've got that call center, and they can offer their subs things that we just can't offer. And so I do believe their fill rates are higher than we would be able to do on our own.
Well, I really appreciate y'all giving us such a thorough report, because it certainly sounded like they had turned the corner and were doing a good job, but it always helps to know and not only reassure us, but the taxpayers that we're being efficient with their resources, and it certainly sounds very positive. So that's not always the case when you farm out things that it goes well, but it certainly appears to be in this case, and that sounds like a quality organization. So glad to hear it.
So may I get just one more bottom line? So there's 100, what's the difference between us doing it and them doing it? This is the 2.4 versus the 2.27?
Right, so if
the 133?
Yeah, so about the 133,000 is what we estimate on that.
That we're paying extra to hire
That we would
for
be
them.
paying extra, and
reasonable.
then if we did increase the rate 10%,
Gotcha.
for example, to try to bring in more, which we feel like we probably would have to go up some, just to try to, lure those people back and some of that. So it was just kind of meant to, show there could be a savings, but the benefits, I think, of staying outweigh.
Right. So right now, apples to apples, we're 133,000 if we want to let them do. Seems like a lot of work for us and offer a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, because they're part-time, we're not able to offer them insurance and other kinds of benefits, and ESS is able to do that, right?
Yeah, the way our plans are set up right now, that would be the way. And then, of course, if we were going to try to restructure that and offer insurance, that would be an added cost
Right.
since the
That's
district
not
contributes.
here.
So,
When I think of, and Carol, remember these days, I think of our auxiliary staff that we're having to call for subs, because it's not an administrator that does the calling in the morning back in the day. It was the people that got there early, the secretaries, anybody who, the principal deemed it, okay, you're the substitute person, and how much they would be on the phone calling, trying to get substitutes up there, and then all day long trying to fill the room, find a sub, find a teacher covering, and those poor people were not being paid anything extra to do that. And so 133,000 is worth the just less stress over any of our employees that have to go back to trying to find a sub. I think this company, the more we deal with them, I think the more it's going to pay off. We lost a year with COVID, So really, it's kind of a young relationship we have with them, and I think it's going to do nothing but get better because, they're in the service business and they have to keep the districts happy. So it's not, so we have the upper hand, so to speak, as far as, what we'd like to, except for those two people that y'all can't get hired from me, but anyway.
We'll keep working on that.
I like it, I know Carol understands, both of you understand it from inside out, so I was hoping that everybody would have a yay attitude about it.
And I think one of the other benefits that's solid with ESS is as the workforce is shifting, I mean, we don't have people banging down our doors to become subs, never have had people banging down the door to become a sub. But as the workforce shifting, they're not just focused on Bryan, right? They're seeing what's working in other markets, other places, and they're able to apply those same benefits and techniques and bring them here to adjust as well. So with that, I move to authorize the superintendent to negotiate and enter into a contract with ESS South Central LLC for the provision of substitute staffing services for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second?
One quick question, since it does say negotiate, do we have an offer from them, or are we just basically just gonna see what, okay. Well, I guess it's still a question mark as to what's that's gonna go with, and we'll, obviously you're given the discretion to do that, but I guess until I just saw that, I was thinking, oh, well, we had an offer from them to continue at a certain rate, but I guess we'll wait and see on that, but certainly you are given that authorization, and I guess if it was gonna be some huge increase or something, we'll find out about that.
They will stay with the current rate. They've assured us of that.
Oh,
So
okay,
it will
okay.
not go
All right,
up.
that's what I was-
And they
yeah.
actually told me they've never seen a number that's in the twos.
Good,
So
good
we're
job.
their lowest.
Okay,
So-
may I ask one question too? How effective are they? How our percentage of substitutes, which isn't going to be their fault necessarily, but how short are we on substitutes is what I guess I'm trying to ask.
It depends on the day.
Okay.
Middle of the week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays tend to be better days because we have less employees out. It depends on the season. It depends on, is it flu season? Is it, do we have a lot of sports and trainings and things happening? It really just depends. I think they are very effective at what they do. They're really very innovative. I've talked to their managers, and our two ladies that work here are some of the most innovative employees they have. They said that they have actually implemented things that are now models for the entire company, like they do trainings at night and on weekends and things like that. So they're doing a lot of things. I think they're more effective than we could be.
So number-wise, how many substitutes are we short on any given day?
Again, I'd
like
have to
10,
really
100?
look.
Okay,
I
just
mean, it
curious.
really depends on the day.
The fill rate that was mentioned earlier was an average of around 80.
Okay.
Mid-80s is the fill rate.
Okay, that's fill rate. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, fill rate
that's
is,
the answer.
yeah, that's the school jargon for
You got
that.
one a little slow learner here, so I'm catching up. So thank
So
you
the-
for your
For
patience.
example, like the fill rate on a Tuesdays could be in the 90s.
Gotcha.
And then a
Don't
fill rate
forget,
on a
we get-
Friday, when
people
you've
get
got
sick
multiple
more on
sports
Friday.
out.
Oh,
it could be in the
Friday's a
70s.
very
Yes.
rough day for sickness.
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you very
Good,
much.
good questions.
All right, well, it's been moved by Mr. McCall and seconded by Ms. Waller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, motion is approved. Thank you. All right, before we move into closed session, we're going to take a brief recess, and then we'll come back, and then we'll adjourn to closed session. Welcome back, everyone. We reconvene from a recess at 1:43. I believe that's correct. So before the board convenes in closed session, I would like to address an issue that has arisen regarding a conflict of interest with a trustee. So as the community is aware, trustee...
I call for orders, please, of the court. If it's not posted today, then it doesn't need to be discussed. I call for orders of the day.
Has risen regarding a conflict of interest for a trustee.
So you're not gonna acknowledge the orders of the day?
I'm going to...
I just want that on the record.
Okay, thank you. As
Let the record also reflect there was no second.
The attorney, so the trustee Gonzalez is also the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee for the City of Bryan. The Attorney General has issued an opinion that one person serving in these two roles creates a conflict. The legal issue that the board is going to discuss with its attorney is related to the use and development of the district's property, a portion of which is being developed as the Ruby Halliburton Auxiliary Complex. Unfortunately, an issue has been presented by the city, and the city may not issue permits needed to proceed with the Ruby Halliburton Auxiliary Complex project. Because trustee Gonzalez maintains his seat on Planning and Zoning, we have been in discussions with trustee Gonzalez with regard to the need for him to recuse himself from our closed session consultation with our attorneys. So, Mr. Gonzalez, will you recuse yourself, yes or no?
If your attorney so advises, then I will take that into consideration. So I would like to speak to the attorney. I'm not included in these, in your discussions, which is what I asked for. And if there's a conflict, I have said repeatedly, yes, I absolutely, so if that's okay, if there's a conflict and your attorney tells me there's a conflict, our attorney tells me there's a conflict, then yes, I will absolutely recuse myself.
So there's two issues here. One is that we are not posted to have a consultation with the attorney on the conflict. We are posted to have a discussion with the attorney about how to proceed on our property. So I have offered twice to schedule a meeting with our attorney and you and me, and you have not responded to those requests. So what I hear you saying now is that you would like the board to reconvene later to meet with our attorney.
No, absolutely not. So I will not, but I'm not gonna miss the part of the closed session that doesn't have to do with this issue.
Do I hear you saying that you will recuse yourself, which means do not attend the part of the meeting where we're going to hear our attorney's consultation on this property?
In order to expedite the process, I think you're being extremely petty about this, but yes, in order to let us get our business done, I will rise to the occasion and do what I said, and I will recuse myself. I would like to reserve the opportunity to actually speak to someone because I need an opinion, not just yours.
I am happy to schedule a time, but I confirmed with our attorneys that because they are representatives of the board, not our individual trustees, that I would need to be at that meeting because it is a conflict of interest with an individual board member and our potential full board of trustees.
And I should have been in with that meeting that you just had with them. But yes, ma'am, to answer your question and get the thing rolling, yes, I will. If it will let our school board conduct their business, then absolutely I will recuse myself.
And for you, that means stepping out of that part of the meeting.
That's not legally necessary, but I will if that will make you feel better, Ms. Harlow.
Perfect, thank you. So I think that issue is now resolved. We can now go to closed session. It is now 1:45.
You want to read the...
Oh. Yeah.
Wait, Dave, you gotta read the number.
In accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Subchapter D and E of Chapter 551, we will now move to closed session to discuss Texas Government Code, Chapter 551.074, 551.071, and 551.129. right, do we have a quorum? Yes. The board reconvened in closed session at 3:06 PM. No action was taken in closed session.
I move that the superintendent and board president and legal counsel proceed in accordance with legal advice given in closed session and anticipate an agenda item on our next meeting.
Second.
It has been moved by Ms. Benford and seconded by Dr. Davis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned.